The Texas A&M AgriLife Extension service has been dedicated to educating Texans for over a century. In 1915, the Extension program was established under the federal Smith-Lever Act to deliver university knowledge and agricultural research findings directly to the people. Ever since, AgriLife Extension programs have addressed the emerging issues of the day, serving diverse populations across the state. Texans turn to Extension for solutions in horticulture, agriculture, 4-H and youth, and family and consumer sciences. Extension agents respond not only with answers, but also with resources and services that result in significant returns on investment to boost the economy. Join us Fridays at 1 o'clock for the AgriLife Extension Hour. Today on the AgriLife Extension Hour, we will be featuring Michael Potter with Landscape and Gardening in Montgomery County.
Good afternoon. You're listening to the Extension Hour here on Lone Star Community Radio. My name is Michael Potter. I'm the horticulture agent here in Montgomery County. And you're listening to the Montgomery County's community radio station. Today I have with me a special guest, Celeste Winfield. Glad to have you with us. She is an intern with us at our extension office through horticulture through Texas A&M. And she's going to be spending quite a bit of time with us, and I just wanted to bring her in and show her kind of what we do as far as what we do in extension. And I've told her that if any time I get off base or anything else, you're supposed to keep me in line. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, good. All right. So today we're going to be discussing a little bit of what's going on in the landscape and around your yards with all the rain that we have had. Over the last couple of weeks, it kind of seems like it's not stopping, but we keep having more and more rain. And I know in my location we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 inches of rain so far over the last couple of weeks. So some of the things that might be occurring, and I think first of all, kind of start from what's happening with our watershed. And probably in earlier episodes. Bob Daly and I've talked about water conservation and what we can all do to save water. There's a reason why those lakes are there, those rivers and those streams, and especially our aquifers, and hopefully they're getting a good recharge right now. But a lot of that is actually running down our rivers and streams and creeks and out into the Gulf. And there's a reason for that. That's a process through an environment that helps kind of rejuvenate estuaries and replenish that water. But one of the things that's causing around here is major flooding, just from the simple fact that all of those areas are they're swelling. They're you can't put hardly any more water down the drain, so to speak. It's backing up. Roads are flooded, neighborhoods are flooded. All the gutter systems that are in some of the subdivisions are flooded. Crews from across the city and county are running around trying to vacuum out some of these gutters and trying to keep water flow going. But it's kind of hard sometimes when downriver there's a brick wall keeping it from going any faster. So right now it's just time to be safe. If it looks like it's too deep, don't go in it. Just try to be safe on the roads and those types of things. But as far as replenishing our watershed, we've at one point in time here this last week they said that the Lake Conroe, which is a backup source of water for our area, was 3 feet over full pool, and then of course they had to release a ton of water downstream, which has caused some major flooding issues, and then not to mention of course what's happening down in the West Houston, Katy and beyond area down there with the Brazos River. I've got a family friend of mine that lives down there, and he's saying that he's 4 miles away from the Brazos River, and there's a road that's about a mile away from his house, and it's flooded. So it's way out of its banks. But the good news is they're reporting that a lot of this, so we're kind of on the top end of it right now, and everything's starting to recede and starting to go down as far as levels. So that's the good news. The bad news is we got a lot of stuff going on. We've had this excessive weather. We've had some tornadoes in the area. there's a lot of areas that have been affected by downed trees and that kind of scenario. Just at our extension office, we had a tree fall on one of our buildings, and had a tree in one of our garden areas. The top broke out of it, which I got in trouble for that, Celeste. They didn't like that I said cut the whole tree down just because the top blew out of it. But we'll kind of discuss that as we go through that problem. But with all the rain that we have had, there's a lot of things that come with that. And first thing I want to discuss, trees, what's going on with shrubs, what's going on with your turf and your vegetable garden, maybe some miscellaneous problems that are going on, and then some drainage issues around the home that we can either help fix or what we can do with those. And then what do we do after the rain? What kind of things go on after? What are all the effects of what happens? How do we maintain what we have? And I'll go through some of that at the end of our broadcast here today. But first of all, let's go ahead and start with trees. The age of the trees and the overall health of the tree really makes a difference as far as what how much damage is done through storms like this, whether it be wind damage or complete uprooting just because of the saturated soils. I have seen, even my neighborhood and driving around the county, there are a lot of trees that have been completely uprooted. And towards the end of the program, I'll answer some of the common questions associated with what's going on and what people are calling the office about. I got a tree that's leaned over. What do I do? Those types of things. But I'll be answering those towards the end. But with these trees, a lot of these trees are in natural areas and home lawns and landscapes that are much larger. You have to take into account that a lot of them are maybe weakened in state due to drought for many years. We've heard enough of that, but now we're having the flooding issue, so that's another thing that can affect them. So what does a flood do to a root system? It can really make it have a really big problem, because one of the first things for any root system of any plant is you have too much water, there's no oxygen. So it's starved of oxygen, and the roots can basically start to rot. They get weak, they get soft, especially when they're underwater for a long period of time. So with that, you start to get other issues that come with it. So you got root issues that are going on right now. They're surrounded by water that could possibly uproot the tree. The root systems are rotting, so their grasp or their grip into the soil and their anchor system is failing in some cases, especially if the tree is leaning or something to that degree. So that's happening. You may have limbs and branches die out. That's an effect of droughts and floods over the years. So there's a lot of insect diseases and things that are going to occur. We've seen a lot recently with fruit and nut trees that are just wilting and not looking good, and they're yellowing out, and some of them have died just because they sat in water. And fruit and nut trees especially need a well-drained soil in order to survive, at least have a good healthy root system. So we recommend, of course, providing a good base for that. Having a mound of sandy loam or a good well-drained soil, having them up, not in a real clay, type soil or anything that holds a lot of moisture. So there's a lot of things going on with the trees. I've seen, beautiful oak trees over the last couple of days that have, broken, fallen over, or something to that degree. And it's funny, you look at a beautiful oak tree and you think, oh man, it's a great, healthy tree. But what we don't see a lot of time is what's on the inside. And you see one of those big old oak trees and it breaks or something, and then all of a sudden you got this big old hollow spot in the middle of it. And that's from years of drought and floods and things like that caused problems. And so a lot of people don't know what to do with those trees. They think you can save them at some point. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Some of those trees just have to be trimmed out either severely or just completely cut down altogether. So that's some of the things that are going on with trees. Now let's talk about shrubs. We've had quite a few of the large shrubs or medium type shrubs that were blown over at our extension office. A lot of that has to do with the fully saturated soils. It's soft, it's mucky, and you can basically move the tree in the soil that it's in. So a little bit of wind sometimes and force from. I kind of explain that trees have a canopy, right? Okay, they got a canopy that acts like a parachute. And that parachute, when you get a good wind or something, it's just going to blow the tree, and that puts force on the root system, and they can pull up. So there's, for shrubs, you could be experiencing some nutrient problems, even some fungal problems. You got mold and all kinds of fungal spores going on right now just because of high humidity. But nutrient problems, you get a lot of paling of the leaves and things like that. So that's something that's going on. And as far as shrubs are concerned, you got some that have blown over and some that have a weakened root system, just like trees, where they're starting to rot and things like to that nature. If I miss anything, Celeste, you need to let me know. Okay. Feel free to jump in. So, is there anything you've seen so far that I need to go back and talk about, or did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered everything.
Oh man, I'm doing good. Thank goodness for mind maps here. Gosh. So the next topic we're going to cover here in just a minute after our break is going to be on turf. We got some of that coming up. Thank you for listening to the Lone Star Community Radio. We'll be back after these messages.
You are listening to the Extension Hour on irlonestar.com.
I know you know this already, but most of the shows on Lone Star Community Radio are available in podcast format. If you want to keep up with the latest shows, just subscribe to our YouTube channel, Lone Star Community Radio, and our website at irlonestar.com. You can even follow us on SoundCloud and Twitter to see the latest posts from Lone Star Community Radio. Can't find a show? Then just search for it on irlonestar.com in the search bar to the top right of every page. Or just contact us on irlonestar.com/contact us with your questions, demands, sponsorships, anything. Lone Star Community Radio is your Montgomery County community radio station.
You're listening to the Extension Hour with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. Visit us online at montgomery.agrilife.org.
Alrighty, we're back for the Extension Hour. My name is Michael Potter. I'm the County Extension Agent for Horticulture here in Montgomery County. We're talking about some of the landscape problems and things that are going on related to the weather and having so much excess water in our area. And I've got with me today Celeste Winfield. She's a intern from Texas A&M University. She's going to be in our office till sometime in August, and she's shadowing me and making sure I stay on track and keep my information up to date and I don't forget anything. And so she's here with me today, and I'm glad to have you with us, Celeste.
Glad to be here.
All right. So I was sitting there thinking. I said, I started something earlier, and I said I was going to talk about it later. We're going to lead into turf here in just a minute. But I was talking about trees earlier, and I was talking about one of the trees at the extension office that it was a big old cypress tree, and then of course cypress trees have their knees and everything around them, and they're beautiful trees, and they typically like real wet areas as it is. But we had one at the extension office that about the last this tree's probably about 50 feet tall, I guess, and about the last 15 feet of it just basically broke out. And I was talking to our master gardeners in that area, and they said, what do we do about this tree? And I said, it needs to come out. And I think I got some real dirty looks out of them when I said that. But I don't play around when it comes to hazard trees, because that's one of the things I don't want. I don't want people losing their lives over a tree that needs to be taken out, or a tree that has a potential to fall on property and do some of those things. And that's just that's the effect of nature. It's going to happen, but we try to minimize those risk trees as much as possible. So that tree that was in there, we ended up cutting that thing out, and it's not as shady in the bog garden as it used to be. There's a little bit more sunlight penetration through there. So, but it was something that I felt that if that tree were to continue to grow with the form that it was in, it would be a weak tree. When you have a tree that has a single trunk or a central leader type trunk, if you cut that out, that can unbalance a tree. So it'll lose its center of balance and then possibly have weakened limbs and have other issues associated with it. So that was one of the things, if you got those types of trees around your home that are leaning severely, that don't look healthy, just keep in mind, the insurance company may appreciate you cutting that thing down, because it may end up in your home or something. It's not fun to have to deal with those types of situations. And, my background coming from the Gulf Coast, closer to the coast and having hurricanes come through and high winds and things like that, I don't take those things very lightly. I try to nip it in the bud and get those things taken care of. So just remember, if something looks like it's going to be a potential issue down the road, go ahead and take care of it. So we'll move into turf. That's kind of one of the things I always like to talk about. We've been having lots of people bring samples into the office and see what's going on. Number one, I hope that your irrigation systems are completely turned off, because we definitely don't need any added water. One of the things that happens, especially with turf grass, is you have a lot of leaching that occurs, and leaching is the amount of water that is coming in there is basically taking all the nutrients and going through the soil past the root system, and it's basically washing those nutrients away from the roots. And that can happen in your trees and your shrubs as well, but it's going to be more prevalent and it's much quicker as far as the visible symptoms on your turf grasses and some of your small annuals and things like that, are in perennial plants, the more tender type plants. But for your turf grass, that's what we're seeing a lot of right now, as well as fungal problems. And there's not much you can do about it at this point in time. It needs to dry out, but then again, Mother Nature has neglected to not turn off the spigot just yet. So, with a little glimpse of blue out in the yonder there off to the west, it makes me think there's hope. But I know that they're still anticipating some more rain to hit this area. So, hopefully irrigation systems are off. What does this mean for turf grass? Well, luckily, rainwater is a lot better for turf grass than regular water that comes through the hose or through an irrigation system. Rainwater has a lot of natural nutrients and everything that nitrates and everything that will actually keep it green and growing, as long as it's not too smothered. But like we were talking about earlier with trees and shrubs, if there is if the soils have not dried out, and there's nothing but a soggy, wet soil, then there's no oxygen in that soil to do anything to help the plant grow. So there's potential issues for turf grass to kind of start dying out, having additional fungal problems just because of the lack of oxygen, and then too much water. That's basically hand in hand there. So that's something you kind of have to worry about, but hopefully if we do start to get a warm up, maybe that'll kind of cure some of it, but we got to treat that in a certain way. So kind of towards the end, I'll kind of give you an idea of what we do after the rain. What are some of the things that we can do, and some of the things to think about. So some of the miscellaneous problems that are going on too. Infestation of mites and rats and snakes and insects coming into people's homes and all kinds of stuff. I kind of pride myself in keeping a pretty clean house, and when I see a cockroach, it doesn't make me happy. And they've been coming up through the weep holes in the house and moving around because it's just too darn wet for them outside. And mice can do that, as well as raccoons and squirrels and other things. They try to find a dry place to run. So you could potentially be having issues with that. One of the things that if we do rent out traps for those types of animals up at our extension office, You have to leave a little bit of a deposit, but we have different size traps that you can trap those animals and remove them out of the house if you have that kind of issue. And just remember, if you do have any questions, regarding your garden or landscape or anything like that, you can always call the Master Gardener hotline at the Extension office, 936-538-7824. And we've got Master Gardeners that man the phone up there, and they'll be happy to answer questions for you and help you out in any way they can. If they can't help you, they can find somebody who will. That's the great part about having a great volunteer program that we have in Montgomery County here. So, yeah, mice, rats, snakes, insects, things like that. You might see a little bit more of them now that it's extremely wet. And, there's a lot of products out there that you can, treat the inside of your home with, or even the exterior of your home. So just be careful. Certain products you can control certain insects, and certain products control other insects. So and there's some general ones out there. But if you need some help with that, call the Extension office, and we can definitely get you pointed in the right direction. Hopefully save you some money and some time. But for the most part, just remember, everything that we're going through right now is really due to all the water that we've had. And like I said earlier, if you need any help with that, just give us a call at the Extension office at the 936-538-7824. Our Master Gardeners are there to help you, and me as well. Or if you have, if you got things you're questioning in your landscape, I'm looking at this tree, it doesn't look quite right, or it's leaning and I don't know what to do with it. You can always bring a picture or two up at the Extension office, or send us some through email, which you can go to our website, montgomery.tx.org, and you can go to the Montgomery County Montgomery County Master Gardener website at mcmga.com. You can get to us from there, and also keep in mind that Montgomery County Master Gardeners also have a Facebook. So anyway, we're going to move along here, moving into some of the drainage at the home. Sometimes we get a little bit too much water in certain spots. So my thing is that if you have gutters, make sure those gutters are cleaned out so you can get water flow in the right areas. If it's, there's a reason why we divert water. We want it to go a certain direction. And there's ways to create, man-made gutters on your lawn by, digging some trenches or holes or things, or adding French drains. This is also a good time, since we had so much water, to go out and look and say, do I need to add some soil here? To what low spots do I have? Or, if I add soil in this neck of the woods in the yard, will it divert water to another area and drain properly? And with that said, just remember, you don't want to force the water on your neighbor. You want to make sure it drains away from their house as well as your house. So a good common drain that drains away from all the houses is a good choice. And also, if you have any areas where water puddles too close to your foundation, it could potentially enter into your house through the weep holes and maybe under the foundation. So you got to be careful about, when you add soil, or when you try to do a leveling process or something like that, you need to make sure that water goes out away from the house and then flows in the appropriate direction. Just take some time to look at it at this point in time. It'll help you tremendously as far as keeping that water out of there. Gutters, like I said earlier, gutters are pretty important. The reason why we have them is to, especially on large surface area roofs, is to take that water and divert it to another location, so you don't end up having floods in certain areas. So it's something that you need to think about. And after this break, we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the programs coming up in Extension, and some of the other things you can do in more detail after the rain. You have been listening to us here on the Lone Star Community Radio. Thank you for joining us for the Extension Hour. We'll be back in a short moment.
You are listening to the Extension Hour with Texas A&M AgriLife. Visit us online at montgomery.agrilife.org.
Lone Star Community Radio is FM. That's right. Set your radio dials and your button presets to Conroe's FM 104.5 and 106.1, coming in June of 2016. To celebrate this edition and the addition of video versions of our talk and music shows on YouTube, cable TV, and Our City TV, we are offering special sponsorships rates, which include free audio spots that are played throughout our broadcast. Interested? Check out our sponsor rates for shows just like the one you're listening to online at irlonestar.com/sponsor, or call the station at 936-647-5747. Reaching the people of Montgomery County with Montgomery County's community radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
You're listening to the Extension Hour on Lone Star Internet Radio every Friday afternoon at 1 p.m.
All right, we're back. Good afternoon. You're listening to the Lone Star Community Radio. We're here with the Extension Hour. My name's Michael Potter. I'm the Horticulture Extension Agent for Montgomery County. And today with me, like I said earlier, we've got Celeste Winfield, intern, working with us until August. I'm glad she's here. And she's also just warned me that I have forgot something. So I'm glad you did that. We were talking earlier, and she says, you really need to talk about mosquitoes. And she's absolutely right. Those little bloodsuckers, I tell you what, they can get you. We were swatting them yesterday. You look like you're swatting them now. Uh-oh, they might be in here. They can be a nuisance, especially with all the rain we had. And there's some things that you can do as a homeowner to help minimize the breeding ground for mosquitoes. And standing water is their heaven, so to speak. So minimizing that standing water is very important. If you have tires and other type of bowl materials, maybe even little saucers underneath potted plants that hold water for a lengthy period of time, make sure that those are drained as much as possible. Right now, as much rain as we have received, if standing puddles in your yard can be an issue. There are insecticides to help you to eliminate some of those issues, and there's also some natural type products that are out there. I've been using some of those in my yard. They're called mosquito dunks, and they're these little round donut type things that are about the size of about a full dollar, and you can break them up and put them into standing water or ponds or thing of that nature, and they're natural. They're Bacillus thuringiensis israelinaceus, and it's what they call BT, and this is a natural soil-borne bacteria / fungi that helps control the larva stages of mosquitoes. And there's always all these new diseases and things that come around because of insects that bite us, and of course right now we're really needing to get a grip and control these the best we can. And I think one of those little mosquito dunks, I think it controls like so many square feet or so many gallons of water, and you can crush them up, throw them around the yard. There's also sprays that you can use that you spray the entire yard, because you need to get into the grass and into the crevices and things like that, and spraying around your wood piles and things like that, and getting those treated. That's really some of the best things you can do. Remember if you got pets that typically stay outdoors and they have big water containers, make sure you dump those frequently and put give them fresh water. They deserve it, number one, but number two, it also keeps those mosquitoes from breeding in there. And then kind of a animal health issue, if you have outdoor pets, make sure they're treated, make sure because one of the biggest things is heartworms. They can get heartworms from being here I am, a horticulture agent, talking about heartworms and animal health. I mean, we kind of have to know a little bit about everything. But that's one of the reasons why, vets and everybody else want you to treat your pets, because they'll get heartworms, and that can be transmitted through mosquitoes. So that's one of the things that's important, and, keep those mosquitoes at bay. And also by doing that, it'll increase our chances of getting something like Zika virus and those types of issues that are insect-related or insect-borne type diseases and viruses. So with that said, we can kind of move on to some of the other things here. We were talking earlier about drainage at home. Gutters, cleaning your gutters out regularly. Very important to do that. Creating a good water flow through those gutters is important in those French drains too. I know that my family, my parents have a situation on their back porch where they've got some French drains, and if they basically have to take the covers off of them in order for the water to flow properly through it. So they've had several instances lately that they've had to rush out in the middle of the night and yank them off just so the water will drain fast enough to where it doesn't come into their house. And with that said, that's my next job, I guess, is to help my parents get a diversion to divert water away from the house. So I'll be probably looking pretty much with gloves in hand and shovel and starting to move dirt here pretty soon to try to relocate, or at least make some kind of trench or swales or something to divert the water in a area that won't impact the house. And you can sometimes rocks around the foundation, or garden art, or sometimes even plants will impede water and back things up. We had an instance up at the extension office. We had a little yard statue that was put too close to the foundation of the office, and a little bit of water got up underneath the metal siding of the building. And we quickly solved that and moved the cat out of the way, and had a relocation program on a cat that was, it's just a concrete cat, but it was enough to cause water to back up and not flow through that area. So we kind of did a quick survey of that. I dug a little trench off to the side, so when water does flow in that direction, it flows away from the foundation. So there's a lot of little things you can do, and you just kind of have to look at it from that standpoint. If you do have areas where you need to divert water from one place to another, French drains, those are great. I've installed one of those myself in my yard to kind of keep water flowing in the right direction. Although when you're having 6 and 8 and 10 inch an hour rains, there's not much that a 12-inch drain will do. It will still back up on you, but having that, if I didn't have that, then it probably would have been a lot worse than it was. But that was the first time I've ever seen it in my yard where water from the back of the house was actually draining towards the front of the house on one side of my house. So it made me realize some things as far as what I need to do to increase drainage. And I know that most people think, this is the 100-year flood. It's the 100-year mark. It's been since whenever. But now's the best time to do something about it to keep it from happening again, because our weather is cyclical, and this will happen at some other point in time, and hopefully we can cure it, or at least keep it from happening. So that's some of the things. So any kind of leveling or bringing in soil and things like that, just keep in mind, if you bring in soil, especially next to a foundation of a home, you need at least 6 inches of clearance between the soil line or mulch line of a house and the top cap of the foundation. So if you have a brick house, that's basically the top of the foundation. Any closer than that's more of an avenue or a venue for termites and other insects to come through and into your weep holes and into your house. So keep that minimum distance. Make sure water flows away from the house and drains in an appropriate area. So talked about the going through the foundation there and everything else. So what do we do? We've got landscapes, gardens, we got turf grass, trees, we got all kinds of stuff. There's Mother Nature has a grip on us. We don't have a grip on her. So we're kind of at her mercy at this point in time. When the water shuts off, what are we going to do? What kind of things can be done around the house to mitigate, all the flooding and the wet soils? Are we going to lose plants? Are we going to lose trees? What kind of things are going to happen? And we kind of did discuss, what the effects are of those issues when it comes to having all this water. If trees have already gone through all the droughts and flooding before, they may already potentially be weak, so their root systems may not be intact. If the branches and limbs have been dying for years in a tree, you would think that there's something wrong there. In fact, the extension office, we had that one cypress tree. There were actually boreholes in the side of the tree, and the tree was kind of like bleeding out of the side of the tree. So that right there signifies that tree was under stress at some point in time, because a healthy tree insects won't attack. They're very less prone to attacking a healthy tree. So in this case, foreseeable, there will be potential problems with a tree like that. So, look at those types of things. Are there boreholes? And sometimes we get a lot of phone calls about, there's holes in my tree, and they're in a straight line, and there's about 7 or 8 of them. And the yellow-bellied sap-sucking woodpeckers are the ones that do that. They do them in a straight line. They don't do them at random. So the difference between a wood borer and a yellow-bellied sapsucker, sapsuckers do them do holes in a straight line. I've had many people send pictures in and say, what borer is doing this? What kind of insect is doing this? When it's a feathered friend that is. So there's ways to keep them out of a tree and things like that. So when we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit more about after the rain. What do we do? How do we fix it? You're listening to the Extension Hour here on Lone Star Community Radio. We'll be back in a few short minutes.
You are listening to the Extension Hour on irlonestar.com.
Want to check out what it's like to be on the radio? Need credit for school? For an internship? Then contact Dick online at dick@irlonestar.com. Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station, and we are here to be part of the community.
You're listening to the Extension Hour with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. Visit us online at montgomery.agrilife.org.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Extension Hour here at Lone Star Community Radio. Just a quick reminder, if you do have any garden or landscape questions or anything related to that you need to ask somebody about, you can call 936-538-7824. That's our Master Garden hotline at the Extension office. Master Gardeners also maintain a Facebook page. They advertise a lot of their upcoming educational programs on that, as well as on our mcmga.com website. So you got Facebook and the website there, so you can give them a call or get to them on email, or also on their webpage as well. So we've got some interesting things coming up. On June 11th, we have a composting and soil preparation for gardening workshop that'll be up at the Extension office on 9020 Airport Road. The cost is $5 per person, cash or check, and we're doing that from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. We try to give you a good little Saturday morning educational series. The next one will be July 9th, floral gardening in Montgomery County. And then we have another one July 23rd, water smarts, doing it right. And then we have another one on August 13th, fall vegetable gardening in Montgomery County. And then on September 10th, we're doing bees, raising and caring for bees. These are some of the programs that we've got going on that are up and coming. And like I said, you can get to those through the mcmga.com website. And we also do have another program that's going to be coming up here on June 18th. This one's kind of a separate program. Basically, bring your kids to the Extension Office Day. It's 9 to 11, just like our educational series. And this one, we're gonna try to get the youth involved in this one. Our Junior Master Gardener program, or they're gonna teach kids a little bit about their exhibit garden that the Junior Master Gardener program has. And you can even build a terrarium. So they're going to have some activities and things for the kids to do there on June 18th, 9 to 11. And I believe the cost is still $5 per person at the door. So, and that's check or cash. But if you have any questions, you can call the Extension office at 539-7824. And then also go to mcmga.com website, and you can get to it that way. We were having a little discussion over the break. My coworker here just said, retention ponds. That's a must nowadays. In any commercial structure or business park or whatever, they have to build those into their structures now. And when they do that, what are some of the pros and cons of it? Well, some of the pros are it creates a vat, in a sense, that water can be held in a heavy downpour, maybe off of a parking lot mainly, or roof structure, so you don't have a lot of runoff water that may cause a flood. Now, in our situation that we're dealing with right now, those retention ponds are not draining because they're just saturated to the point where they can't get rid of the water that they have. So they overflow and they go down into other excess, gutters and things like that. So it actually does, in a sense, choke down the amount of water that's distributed out of those things, but they still can flood, and you can still have issues with them, overflowing and things of that nature. So, they do have benefits in some way, shape, or form, but, the one of the benefits I did see is that you can do a lot of cool plantings. And if you've ever been to Nevada or any of those areas like Arizona, they actually build very large ones, and I'm talking their acres, and they're next to subdivisions. And you know what they have in the bottom of those?
No.
Soccer fields, baseball fields. It's kind of neat. That's how they water them. You get a big flood or a big rain and everything, it basically flood irrigation. It's cool. Kind of a different concept. Here, I don't think it would work that well because they may maintain a little bit too much water. May have to have swim meets rather than baseball and soccer games or football games. So there are some pros and cons to having those detention ponds. But for the most part, they're there for a reason, as far as trying to keep that water from causing issues. Especially off of big surfaces like parking lots and buildings that capture or tend to divert a lot of water in one area. So it diverts it to a storage area so it can be slowly released rather than all at one time. So at any rate, so what are some of the things that we need to do around the house? Gutters, if your gutters aren't clean, I'd clean them as soon as the sun comes out, which we're looking at some actual sun here. We've got may have to actually put the sunglasses on when we go outside, so that's a good thing. Hopefully, between we get some drying effect that goes on. One of the things I'd like to mention is that last year we had some good rains. It got real wet around here. Everybody was saying, "Gosh, I wish it would stop raining." One of the things that happened was with turf grass. Turf grass stopped raining, and you can go look at the weather data. You can see it was just raining, and all of a sudden the graph hits the bottom because it just stopped raining, and it was 2 months or something like that before we had another rain. Well, a lot of people said, "Oh, we've had enough rain. I won't even turn the irrigation system on." So they left it off for a week or 2 weeks, but it got so hot, and then it dried out so fast that the root system basically, the grass burned up. And one of the reasons why is because roots like to be where the water is. And if you have rain every day, then the roots are very shallow and they stay up close to the surface. They don't chase water down like they should. That's why we always tell people, wean your grass off of water. That makes the root systems develop and get further down in there. And so that's one of the things we can do is monitor the rain per se, and irrigate as necessary. I think that you're still going to have to wean that grass off of water, just because if it does stop raining, then we'll have those issues. Some of the things, an aeration of some type in your lawns or even in your flower beds using a pitchfork or something like that will add some oxygen in there, kind of loosening up the areas That'll help, especially when it'll help it dry out a little further or a little faster too. If you have any wet spots or sunken areas, fill it in, try to level it, but make sure you get that water. Make sure that water that would normally be in that area has a place to drain. Keep it away from your foundation. Vegetable beds. Try to divert water away from your vegetable beds. I know a lot of people are suffering. The tomatoes are cracking at the ends. They got blossom end rot. The plants don't look good. A lot of that has to do with just in our environment. Sometimes there's just not much you can do about it. So trees, if you have smaller trees and shrubs that may have blown over, depending on how much the root system was damaged, if it actually popped a root system completely in half or something like that, you can still prop up those trees or try to move them back to where they should be. As it dries, then hopefully they'll form a new root system, but you still may have some issues with maybe some branches dying out or something to that degree. Now, when you get a tree that's beyond about 6 inches in diameter, it's going to be hard to really save it if a tree is damaged severely. So, like I said earlier, we've got some garden programs coming up for you this summer. You can go to mcmga.com, and you can also call the office at 936-539-7824. We can give you information on those. They're going to be $5 or a Saturday class from 9 to 11. Thank you very much for joining us today here on the Extension Hour. You're listening to Lone Star Community Radio. Been a pleasure. Stay dry, folks.
Thanks for checking out this production of Lone Star Community Radio, Montgomery County's community radio station. For more information on this show and other shows on Lone Star Community Radio, check us out online at irlonestar.com. If you're interested in sponsoring a program on Lone Star Community Radio and reaching the local audience of Montgomery County on FM, internet, TV, media, please call 936-647-5747 or contact us online at irlonestar.com. This recording is a Lone Star Community Radio production produced by the show host and Dick Schischler of Lone Star Community Radio. Interested in volunteering as a music DJ or starting your own talk show? Contact Dick Schischler at dick@irlonestar.com or by phone at 936-647-5747.